George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and Franklin Roosevelt are often regarded as the three greatest presidents in our history, but Dwight Eisenhower, the 34th president, is never too far behind. His 8 years in office leave behind a legacy that is impossible to cover in just one video, so I won't even try. Here are the 7 biggest aspects of Eisenhower's presidency. I will not be mentioning his war service, although I do greatly respect his service in World War II. As for the 7 biggest parts, we will get into them in this video, but first, if you share my interest in U.S. history, please consider subscribing to the channel, as it is the very best way to support the work I do for these videos. And for now, let's get into it. One of Eisenhower's most lasting accomplishments was the creation of the Interstate Highway System through the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956. Inspired by Germany's Autobahn and his own difficult cross-country military trip in 1919, Eisenhower believed a modern highway network was essential for both national defense and economic growth. The project created over 40,000 miles of high-speed roads, linking cities, towns, and military bases across the nation. It greatly boosted trade, tourism, and suburban growth, while also changing how Americans lived and worked. However, it also contributed to the urban decline in some areas and made the country more dependent on cars and oil. Despite the drawbacks, it remains one of the largest public works projects in history. 2. Eisenhower's foreign policy, centered on containing communism without overextending the U.S. military budget. His New Look strategy emphasized nuclear weapons and strategic air power as a cheaper deterrent compared to large conventional forces. This led to the policy of massive retaliation, promising overwhelming nuclear response to any Soviet aggression. While it kept direct war with the Soviet Union at bay, it also raised fears of global annihilation. Eisenhower used alliances like NATO and covert CIA operations to influence events in places like Iran and Guatemala. 3. When Eisenhower took office, the Korean War had been a bloody stalemate for 2 years. Determined to end the conflict, he hinted at the possible use of nuclear weapons to pressure North Korea and China into peace talks. By July 1953, an armistice was signed, halting active fighting but leaving Korea divided at the 38th parallel. This brought relief to a weary American public and allowed Eisenhower to focus on domestic priorities. However, the war's unresolved nature set the stage for ongoing tensions that still exist today. 4. Eisenhower often took a cautious approach to civil rights, but he acted decisively when the rule of law was challenged. In 1957, he sent troops to Little Rock, Arkansas, to enforce the Supreme Court's order to desegregate Central High School. This was the first time since Reconstruction that the federal government used military force to protect African American students' rights. He also signed the Civil Rights Act of 1957 and 1960, which aimed to protect voting rights, though they had limited impact. 5. The Eisenhower Doctrine, a lesser-known doctrine to Monroe and Truman. It extended Cold War containment to the Middle East. Eisenhower believed Middle Eastern oil resources and strategic position made his doctrine critical to U.S. security. The doctrine was tested in 1958 when U.S. Marines landed in Lebanon to stabilize the pro-Western government. While it strengthened the U.S. influence in the Middle East, it also drew America into complex regional politics. This policy set the stage for deeper U.S. involvement in the region for decades to come. 6. Eisenhower presided over one of the most prosperous decades in American history. The economy enjoyed steady growth, low inflation, and rising wages, giving many Americans a higher standard of living. Suburban neighborhoods expanded rapidly, fueled by the GI Bill, cheap mortgages, and the new interstate highways. Consumer goods like televisions, cars, and household appliances became common in middle-class homes. However, this prosperity was not shared equally. Many African Americans, rural communities, and urban poor were left behind. Eisenhower's economic policies favored stability and balanced budgets, reflecting his cautious and moderate approach. Finally, the Soviet launch of Sputnik in 1957 shocked the American public and raised fears that the U.S. was falling behind in science and technology. Eisenhower responded by increasing federal funding for math and science and education through the National Defense Education Act. He also created NASA in 1958 to coordinate the nation's space efforts. These steps marked the beginning of the U.S.-Soviet space race, a competition for technological and military superiority beyond Earth. While critics said Eisenhower initially underestimated Sputnik's impact, his measured response laid the foundation for future space achievements. This moment also reflected the broader Cold War competition for global leadership. Alright, that's it. Hey, did you know from 1933 to 1963, the president in office is often regarded as one of the 10 greatest presidents in our history? You just learned about one. How about 2 more? Click right here. Thank you for watching and have a good weekend.